Greetings from Minnesota. I'm truly honored to receive the 2020 Distinguished Achievement in Leadership Award from ARNOVA, an association that's really meant a lot to me for the last 35 years. My first conference was 1985, so it has been 35 years. Like many of you, I'm really sad to miss the awards luncheon. One of my very favorite things about the ARNOVA conferences, and particularly the din of voices from hundreds of conversations in a hotel ballroom at these luncheons. One of the things that I most enjoy about our luncheons together is both finding old friends, but also new ARNOVA conference participants who are oftentimes graduate students giving their first academic presentation, often from places beyond the borders of the United States. ARNOVA has really, over all these years, intentionally maintained an expansive and expanding view of itself as a scholarly association. So while this year really is different, we all have to recognize that, my hope is that an ever-broadening and diverse set of participants will always feel welcome at our ARNOVA tables. I want to thank the awards committee for their work, and especially my nominees, Stephen Rathgeb-Smith and Carrie Olberger. Steve and I go back a long way. We became friends as we were both graduate students, and have been friends and colleagues ever since. And we've been fortunate to see this field grow, congeal, and really create some institutional anchors. And Steve's leadership in developing all of that really has been critical. Carrie's a newer colleague, and one that I met back, I think, around 2011 or so through the ARNOVA doctoral fellowship workshop. And Carrie, along with her co-nominators, Alnor Ibrahim and David Suarez, now provide new intellectual and institutional leadership as the field grows and develops. So I want to thank all of the nominators for their work on this award. I also want to thank my husband, Paul Stone, who has been with me since those graduate school days. He's provided continued support and encouragement all the way along. And as a historian, he has certainly reminded me to pay attention to the historical context surrounding the questions and the topics and the issues that I have explored over these many years. Thanks to everybody who's been involved. As I thought about the remarks that I wanted to share with all of you, two experiences from my past kept surfacing. The first of these was in the 1970s when I was living in Alaska and founded and developed a couple of nonprofit organizations that worked with kids and families in crisis. All of us who were involved in those efforts were flying by the seat of our pants, and we certainly wanted to change the world and thought we could do it. But those experiences sort of collectively fostered in me a real fascination with organizations and with governance. And those fascinations have always grounded my research as well as my teaching. The second set of experiences really concerned my graduate school student days in the 1980s when I was affiliated with the Yale program on nonprofit organizations, also known as POMPO. It was here that I met my longtime friend and collaborator, Francie Ostrauer. And one of the hallmarks of our experience during that time was feeling that even as graduate students, we were contributing to a really important endeavor. Alongside other graduate students, junior faculty, senior faculty, academic centers developing in the US and other parts of the world, leading practitioners, we were helping to build a field of study. And as graduate students, we really felt a part of that. So what struck me most about that time at Yale was that the thinking was expansive. Big questions were being asked, by a joint collective of scholars and practitioners from many diverse backgrounds. So from these experiences and certainly others, let me offer a couple of reflections that look ahead as well as look back on what those experiences really have taught me over the years. So the first one of these reflections is pretty much what I was just talking about from my graduate days, that we need to continue to promote expansive thinking and attention to big questions in our field. Big questions about and within the field remain really salient. And while they're being explored by many of us, they still need our attention. So for example, how in the 2020s would we approach the question of why nonprofits, non-governmental organizations exist in certain industries, certain cultures and communities, certain historical contexts, rather than corporate or public sector organizations? Or another question, how do we understand a long-standing issue in the field, this tension between private aims and public goals? But today, these tensions exist alongside a heightened awareness of persistent structural inequalities. How would we think about those questions now? To explore these and other questions, we really continue to need a cross-disciplinary approach that emphasizes and embraces philosophy, history, economics, political science, sociology, psychology, anthropology, so forth, alongside management and public policy. There are so many pressures, and we're all aware of them in academia, to explore more narrow research questions in order to get published, get hired, achieve promotion and tenure. But still, there are opportunities to situate these more narrow research questions in the context of larger issues, larger questions that will promote a deeper understanding in the field. I just think wide-ranging intellectual curiosity must remain a hallmark for our work. Second, I think the field of nonprofit and philanthropic studies has fostered and must continue to emphasize a developmental approach. We need to continue to articulate that the field of nonprofit and philanthropic studies has not just arrived to take its place alongside of well-established academic fields, but that it's continually evolving, much as the phenomena that we study and care about continually evolves. And we each have a role to play in nurturing graduate students, supporting junior faculty, and enticing new senior faculty, and connecting with practitioners to bring them into this field of study. As I mentioned earlier, ARNOVA really seems to have this approach, this developmental approach, hardwired into its institutional DNA, or at least it has for the last 35 years that I've been affiliated with it. But a developmental approach needs to be continually, constantly replenished and rejuvenated by all of us. How do we give scholars, especially those new to the field, that feeling that we had as graduate students, that we were really part of something important, that we were part of something that matters in helping to build and develop and grow this field of study? It's something I think we need to continue to really pay attention to. Third, and related to the issue of constant development in the field, I have felt that our leadership in teaching and curriculum development remains critically important. And that may be because of my prior experience as an executive director flying by the seat of her pants. But I've always been committed to teaching as well as curriculum development. And ARNOVA as well as NAC have helped enormously expand my learning about both teaching and curriculum development. I view teaching about nonprofit management, which is what I mostly focused on, as more than just presenting a toolbox of techniques and frameworks. Teaching really provides important opportunities for students who will lead nonprofits or who are already leading nonprofits to grapple with some of those big questions that I mentioned earlier, situated in the context of leadership and management situations. It also offers students the opportunity to become multilingual, to really become fluent in the ideas, the concepts, the frameworks from both the world of business management as well as the world of public policy. Both are needed, I believe, in order to lead effective organizations that continually are able to articulate and enact values-based missions. Our teaching and research missions really go hand in hand to continue to develop the field. Finally, let me offer an observation that is longstanding for me and goes back to my graduate student days. Even as a graduate student affiliated with Pompo, I noticed that people in this field were funny. They laughed a lot. They had really good senses of humor. And as I began attending different academic conferences, the contrast with ARNOVA was really palpable for me. I felt like I could exhale at ARNOVA, and I found myself laughing in the hallways, over coffee, sitting around discussion tables, whatever. Dennis Young, Linda Serra, Dave Renz, Will Brown, Robert Ashcraft, Ruth McCambridge, you know who you are. We laugh a lot. And so I began wondering, why might that be? Was it really just the standard explanation that we take our subject matter seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously? Well, perhaps, except I think we do take ourselves pretty seriously as teachers and as researchers and scholars and mentors. So maybe it's because we have a real genuine joy that in our work and in the knowledge of why we're engaged in the work. Perhaps it is because we have a sense of belonging and meaningfulness that we are all collectively engaged in. What we are all collectively engaged in really does matter. And my hope is that ARNOVA continues to maintain that spirit for years to come. So thank you all again for this honor, and I look forward to seeing many of you in person in 2021. Thanks.